dirty,
filthy,
mucky.
Wow, this is nice. I could get used to this. My setup here is all coming together. So, I don't really have any news or anything to talk about, at least not at the moment. I was thinking all day about what my follow-up video to my first introduction video was going to be. And I got to thinking about, why am I doing this? Why am I feeling compelled to be a loudmouth on the internet, so to speak? And one of the reasons is I've been watching people over the past 20 years or so have discussions and talk about controversial issues and basically think out loud. And I admire that. I admire people who are willing to think out loud and stand up for their opinions, stand up for their perspective, and stand up for their beliefs, regardless of whether or not I agree with them. More importantly, though, I've been thinking about offending people. Not deliberately, but it's a consequence of doing this kind of thing. Do you get offended by things? I do. That question was rhetorical. You do get offended by things. Whether you admit it is another story, but everybody gets offended by something. Now the word offended was kind of hijacked by people who want to make fun of like the woke left and the SJW movement and the like over the top libs who are offended by everything. And that is definitely a thing. But make no bones about it. You get offended by things. Yes, you do. Everybody does. Well, maybe not everybody, but I'm sure there are some just super zen people who everything just rolls off their back, but I'm not one of them, and likely neither are you. You know that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach or in your chest when somebody or a group of people do something or don't do something, and it just turns, and you're like, oh, whether you recognize it or not, that's offense. You're taking offense to something. Most people who have any sort of attitude, opinion, perspective, idea about something can be offended by something. You can get offended by things. I'm offended by lots of things. I get offended by authority figures. I don't like authority. I don't like the hierarchy of authority. Nothing I can do about it. Just born into a culture where authority figures are woven into the way it is. I'm offended that there are so many people who dismiss the understandings and the advancements that that great scientists have discovered over the centuries when it's convenient. When people poo-poo science. I'm a big science nerd. I'm a big Carl Sagan was a hero of mine. And when people just like, oh, no, that doesn't line up with my worldview, so science is just stupid. That offends me. I'm fucking offended by that. You know, I get offended when people don't take care of their children or don't take care of their responsibilities. I'm fucking offended by that. You know, people who, you know, put themselves into situations, like life situations, and they don't take responsibility for their actions. I get offended by that. Like, fuck you. I get offended by that shit. You know, we all make mistakes, but at least admit it. Ugh. What do you get offended at? Tell me, like, what people get offended by things. It's not wrong to be offended. What is wrong, though, is to use offense as like a shield. Christopher Hitchens, if you know that name, you know that he was no stranger to controversy. Christopher Hitchens is somebody that I admire a great deal. Not only because, you know, he was a great writer, and he was, and a great thinker, and he was a journalist, but what he was brazen. Christopher Hitchens never missed an opportunity to argue with somebody. He reveled in it. And I loved that about him. And he had this beautiful, booming British voice. And there are countless hours of him on the internet debating people, disagreeing with people, having conflicts with people. And he's, you know, arguably, like, was victorious every single time. And he would say this this thing when people would try to either outright say or imply that he was being offensive. And they would say, Christopher, that's just offensive. And he would always say, I'm waiting to hear what your argument is. Being offensive is a part of life. Being offended is a part of life. Let me rephrase. Being offensive is a choice. Being offended is kind of a part of life. I have to be okay with offending people, and I am. Because you can't think out loud. You can't have any courage of your convictions if you're worried about offending people, because somebody's always going to be offended by any opinion you have. It doesn't matter what it is. So I think that is the bedrock of what I think and why I want to do these kinds of things, is because I'm offended by things. I understand others are offended by things, but that is not a reason not to call it like you see it. Worrying that you might offend somebody is not a reason to keep quiet if you don't want to. That's what I think. You know, I like the idea that I can think out loud, I can think on the fly, and I can say things that may be wrong, that may irritate people, that may bother some people, that may generate acrimony or conflict, and it's okay because I'm allowed to do it, and you're allowed to be offended. I like that. I like how I've woven that together in my mind, and I'm going to, push off based on that principle. It's all coming together, with the exception of all of this recording equipment, which is just a giant, giant pain in the ass. But this tea is delicious. Till we meet again.
Dirty, filthy, mucky.